One Piece, the British royal family, and the floods of Noah. Yes, I'm continuing down this thought track, you guys, because I'm trying to figure out, the last time I went down one of my rabbit holes of trying to understand what the hell's happening in this world, it took me 2 years. Yeah, we're on another rabbit hole now, and I'm trying to show you guys how One Piece, I feel, truly depicts not just like what's happened, what's happening, but also what's going to happen. So there's so much to talk about with this. And today I want to talk about the parallels between the One Piece story, Luffy and his family and his parents, the British royal family, what I think that has to do with the floods of Noah, and how I feel that's being depicted in One Piece. Let's continue. If this is the first of these videos, guys, I've got a whole playlist to just go through it. I did a whole chunk in one time, but now I'm just consistently adding as I'm delving deeper into the whole storyline. Let's go into it. So let's start here. So one of the things in One Piece that isn't discussed a lot, but is something we all know, is that we don't know who Luffy's mother is, right? We know who his father is, Monkey D. Dragon. Monkey D. Dragon, however, didn't grow up, Luffy didn't grow up with his dad, he grew up with his grandfather, Garp. So just to get people who don't watch One Piece so that you can still get value from this, I'm going to explain quickly how that family structure works. So his grandfather, Garp, right, is one of the Marines, right? He's a Navy admiral. Well, he's not an admiral. What am I saying? He's known to be one of he might be an admiral. I get so confused by the different titles, right? But he's the most powerful. He's the strongest. He just like throws cannons. He's an absolute insane person, right? He literally can just throw cannons, and he's extremely powerful. And essentially he has a son who is Monkey D. Dragon, who now, so obviously the Marines, the Navy, that's working for the government. They do whatever the government tells them. They're people that, and this is key, I believe they're all people that when they signed up initially, at least for the most of them, they signed up purely because they want to be a part of something where they can support, fight for their country, fight for the safety of their people, protect their families, protect their country. You get the gist. That's why I assume most people would sign up for being in, to become a Marine or whatever. So he ends up, obviously he's been in there for a very long time. He's extremely powerful. He's very well trusted, but he's a little bit of he has a little bit of his own side of doing things, because not only is he the grandfather of Luffy, who of course is a pirate, and his son, Monkey D. Dragon, who is known to lead the Revolutionary Army, i.e. the enemies of the government. It turns out he also, for whatever reason that isn't completely clear just yet, also took on, some kind of grandfatherish style role for Ace, Port Gusty Ace, who is the son of Gol D. Roger, the first king of the pirates, the first one to find the One Piece. Now, it's important to mention that finding this One Piece, I believe, is finding the true history of what happened in this 100-year void 800-900 years ago, where there was a cataclysm, etc., much like how I believe that there's a whole bunch of lost history and a lot of things that certain people in power, which is how we're going to now relate it to royal families and dynasties and governments in a minute, don't want people to find out. So that's why Roger going to find this One Piece and discovering what he did was a huge issue for the government, and they send out these Marines to the pirates, because when Gol D. Roger died, whose son is Ace, who is Luffy's, not actually, I don't know if they're any blood related, but they grew up like brothers. When he died, he said, I found the One Piece and I left all the treasures that I found in this world here. And he basically announced the new era of pirates, which is a huge issue for the government, because now all these people are going to go and look for this One Piece, which no one really knows what the One Piece is. The reason why I quickly got into One Piece is because I had a feeling from very early on. I was like, I bet you the One Piece is going to be something to do with the history of the world, right? And I bet it's going to be accurate to the history of today. I just had an inkling. This is like 2-3 years ago when I started watching One Piece. So isn't that crazy that I had that inkling so early into the show? And now I'm like so convinced, because it's just always adding up. So that's how it goes. We've got Garp. He must be an admiral. Garp, who is the grandfather. He then has a son, Monkey D. Dragon. Dragon is leader of the Revolutionary Army, who hasn't done a lot this far in the story, even up till where the anime finished, episode 1122. Even still hasn't done much. I believe he's preparing for an upcoming war, which I also think is I hate to say it, but that's what I believe is happening in the world today. That there's a lot of preparation for some kind of big event, because this is what I feel like is happening in One Piece, and it's all about people playing certain cards and how they're playing them, right? And so then he has then Luffy, who's his son, who he doesn't grow up with his father for reasons I'm not sure of yet. But this is where we're going to get into some of my interesting overlaps with the royal family in this country and just the floods of Noah, right? So we know that the world government as it stands and the, what are they called? The celestial dragons. So we have this, what we call the celestial dragons. And these are like the people that like are supposed to be coming down, if I'm correctly naming them, but like let's just call them the equivalent of the royals in One Piece, right? So these are the people that are seen, they're like the kings and whatevers, if you like. They're seen to become, but they're called saints in the show. There's also a Saint Carlos, which reminds me of King Charles, which I feel like that's just not by accident. But anyway, so they are said to be the descendants of the original people that forged this world government, and therefore that's why they have this right to power. This is the key thing. They rule over everybody. They, everybody in essence else is their slave. So they enslave whatever other people around the world that they want to at any given time that they want to do so. Are you guys seeing where I'm going with a lot of this? And they are just these royals, and that's why they immediately remind me of the royal family. They don't do anything. Like, they don't do anything. They're not these powerful fighters. They're not going out into battle on their horses at the front of the armies, you know, and taking on whatever. They're just people with a lot of money that have a lot of power, where no one gets to say anything to them in the country. They take advantage of whoever they want to take advantage of whenever they want to, but they're still seen and adored, as these royal rulers, despite the fact that they're old, crusty, and dusty. And that's honestly, I hate to say it like that, but that's the honest truth about what I think. And that's what connected me to them with the royal family, because I'm like, outside of whatever they're doing behind the scenes, which is what we're going to get into more and more in the series, on the outward sense, the royal family doesn't do a lot. They don't, in this country, they're not coming against what the government say, because obviously when things are passed to the government in the United Kingdom, technically all the laws have to be approved by the royal family. Obviously the royal family is not inclined to not approve a lot of things, also because historically it's been proven, and that's why prime minister is so powerful and is seen as more powerful a lot of times than the king or queen, that because the prime minister has always been seen to have more power as far as the people are concerned than the royal family over time, hence why, you know, they have had to forge this relationship. Otherwise the royals are threatening their position even more, because the fact is the only reason they're really maintaining that position anyways is just because people have respect, probably just because a lot of them are old, nothing else other than that, to be completely honest with you. And hence why people's feelings changed a lot after Queen Elizabeth passed away, because it's like, we were going to be respectful to this very old woman who's been doing this since she was 16 years old and who's passed away now. We'll respect her position. Now a lot of people from the United Kingdom are fed up. Now, what does this have to do with One Piece? And what does this have to do with why I think this links in with the floods of Noah? Well, I'm going to explain. So I discovered now that apparently, according to, it's likely, I can't remember if it's official or if Oda officially said it, or if it was put in one of the episodes. I'm getting confused because I'm literally looking at the manga, I'm looking at the explained videos, I'm looking at theories, I'm looking at all sorts at the moment. I'm going back through watching it myself, so it's like, it's a lot. Luffy's dad, right? So let's remember, these people have maintained power over the entirety of the country. Another important thing to mention is that they've stationed where they live, Enies Lobby and all of this world government place, is high above the sea level on the red line. So the red line like splits the world, and they live above the red line, right? Which is probably hundreds of meters above sea level, which is going to come into it, because the cataclysm that happened before the world government formed, the sea levels rose 200. So it was a flood, just like in the times of Noah. That's what I'm saying. It's interesting. And that flood was considered to be the Great Cleansing, which is what takes me into what I think is going to happen in the future in One Piece, which takes me to what I think is going to happen to the future in the world of what we're living in today, right? So they live above there, and that's where the royals live. That's where the top 5, the Gorosei, the 5 elders of the government live, and above them is Imu, which no one's supposed to know about Imu, because Imu, there's not supposed to be anybody sitting on the throne, because when this world government was formed, all these 900 years ago or 800 years ago, after this cataclysm in the Void Century, the idea was we're all going to come together in agreement that we're all going to come together in agreement that we are not going to put anybody on the throne. We're all going to independently run our own countries. No one sits on the ultimate throne, but as we know now, Emu sits on the ultimate throne. Interestingly enough, Emu backwards is Umi, which means ocean in Japanese, which actually means hidden one if you equate that to Im in Egyptian. Your girl's been doing her research. So why is this all relevant? So you see how I'm talking about the floods, the ocean. I've been saying that there's something about the ocean in the next thing to come, and something to do with the fact that when God wiped out everything on the universe, and he wiped out everything that breathes through the nostril, that's what it says, everything that breathes through the nostril, and the sea levels rose. So that means whatever creatures, whether they be human, animal, and or chimeric in nature, whether it's animals that have forged together, whether it's humans and animals that are forged together, whatever existed, as long as it wasn't breathing through the nostril, it can still exist. And I believe that that's exactly what's happening. And I believe, and I'm going to talk about why Luffy's a threat and how this all links into the royal family in just a second, right? And how this is all about power. So now the situation is supposed to be that all of these other 20 kingdoms that come together periodically to meet and talk, they discuss what's happening in the world. No one's the overall overarching ruler. There's not one king of the world, but there are kings in their own kingdoms. There is a government who works with them so that we maintain order, and the governments work with those kingdoms, although letting those kingdoms exist. And there's not supposed to be any supreme leader, supreme king, which we know there is Emu that people don't know about. Right now, let's not forget the fact that, actually we'll come back to that in a second. So these people who are now the royals, separate to the 20 kingdoms that meet together, the royals are the ones who the royals are the ones who are direct, definite descendants from this original people, and therefore that's why they're kind of separate and they get to be treated as these special beings that live here. So sorry, one second. All in all, the point of everything I'm saying is this maintenance of power, that there is a group of people, royals, who are working together to maintain this power and this status. And anything that is a threat to this power and state, the biggest thing that's a threat to this power and status, it seems, is people discovering this history that has happened, right? Around the time of this cataclysm, this void century. They're calling it a void century because they're saying nobody knows what happened, although they know, and anybody who's seen to be trying to figure out what did happen is always removed, killed, destroyed. So like they destroyed the whole island where the archaeologists, where Nico Robin, who's one of the members now of Luffy's team, they destroyed her whole island because they had started to figure out what was going on. And now what's happened since the anime, now into the actual manga that's gone past the anime, because the anime is on a break for 6 months. Also, why has Disney Plus bought Crunchyroll? But that's a conversation for another day. And so what was I going to say? Yeah, so now Luffy and so now it's all this thing about power. That's what I was trying to say. I was trying to say about the power thing. So there's this maintenance of power. We need to control everyone. We need to maintain our position as the highest royals, and we need to be the ultimate king of the whatevers, right? Because we need to control the narrative, because if people find out whatever the secret is, which is what I'm trying to figure out, that's what I'm obsessed with, they're going to know the truth. And this brings me to the royal family, because when it came to Harry and Meghan and all these different things that have happened, people tried to make a lot of things that the royal family do about like race and stuff. And I don't think it is about race. I think it's about the fact that the point is, we've all accepted as society, and it's interesting to me because this is actually a godly concept, not even a worldly one, but the world operates the same way. It's almost as if things just exist in certain ways in the universe. I'm so sorry about the lighting all over my face, guys. There's no getting away from it. Trust me. I just tried to change position and it didn't work. Okay. Anyway, so this is the thing, right? So there's an understanding that, like, if you're in a family bloodline, right? So if you're in a bloodline, the bloodline is such that if you're a king, your firstborn son is the next king, and then his firstborn son is the next king, and hence why, even Henry VIII was having all these issues because he was not having boys, and why he wanted to divorce, all of these things, all the things he did, behead his wives and all these things, because he's like, I need a son, right? So, of course, there's this maintenance of power thing. And I honestly think that's so much more what the royal family is obsessed with than anything else. And not just the royal family, the royal families in Europe in general, because they established their power throughout however many years of a lot of different events. And they're afraid of losing it. And they're afraid of losing it mainly if people discover other things, other truths that people didn't know. Hence why I feel like the education system is the way that it is in the Western society. Hence why I feel like it's abnormal for us to think of spiritual things and supernatural things. The rest of the world believes in them. If you go to places like Japan, if you go to places like Africa, if you go to places all over the world, people, if you go to a lot of the original people that existed in a lot of these countries that are not the people now, Aboriginals, Native Americans, etc. If you look into those histories, these people all believed in supernatural beings, etc. That look similar and behave similarly to these gods or these things that existed back in the times of Noah, according to how things went down in the times of Noah, according both to the Bible and to other historical texts, right? Such as the Book of Enoch, for example. And why am I saying this? A lot of the dynasties in the world are considered to have descended from gods. I said in Rome, they considered Rome, and Rome was a twin brother. And the Roman was a twin brother to another guy, another twin who also had a name that started with R. I forget what it is, like Re something, I can't remember. The Rome one kills the other one. Because they both found this land. They were both these demigods, right? According to mythology again. Who's in control of all these systems? Who's the powers? Who would control the narrative? Just saying. And so then they what is I saying? So they have said to have come from these gods. A lot of the East Asian communities believe that they descended from gods, that the dynasties, they have their right to be that dynasty because they descended from the gods. And I believe that's a similar thing happening in One Piece, which is why Luffy's become such a problem and why his dad has become a revolutionary. Because I believe that this is my theory. My theory is Monkey D. Dragon, right, was because apparently he also used to be a Marine. Apparently he also was a very powerful, very good Marine, but obviously now he's flipped his script and he's become a revolutionary. And here's what I think happened. I think he was a really good, really high-level Marine, right? Because even Garp, his father, supposedly, he's very comfortable going in these spaces where the royals are. He's very much more comfortable there. Those places are like essentially illegal for everybody to be in. But certain people of high enough ranking and power in the Marines can go there, right? So I believe that Monkey D. Dragon probably didn't come from anything. He was Garp's son and he's became a really powerful Marine, right? And so had access to these areas. I believe Luffy's mum is actually of one of these descendants. This is where I'm going. Is actually one of these descendants of these saints that come from the original people that are the dynasties, right? The ruling royal dynasties, right? I believe that the reason why I believe that the final straw for Monkey D. Dragon, his dad, I believe his dad saw the corruption at the highest level and realized that what he signed up for wasn't what it was, which again is actually an experience that a lot of people, if you listen to the stories of people who've been to war in any type of way, in the military, especially in the West, they realize that the narrative that's being told on the news, the narrative that's being sold to them isn't what it really is, right? Just like how there's that clip where there's Kamala Harris saying, we don't even have any United States citizens out at war anywhere, and then it clips to a bunch of United States guys in the military looking at that clip being like, well, what do we do? Who are we then? Or like, what are we doing, right? And it's a funny clip, but it's very telling, if that makes sense, of the situations that we're all living in. So I believe that when Luffy's dad when Luffy's dad built himself up to that level of power, not only did he see the corruption, he also fell in love probably with somebody that was actually being done wrong, which I kind of feel is where Meghan Markle went wrong and where Meghan Markle was kind of problematic. Because I feel like Harry genuinely went through actual issues with his family and that there's a lot of heinous things the royal family is involved with. I've said this before and I'll say it again. I believe there's a lot of heinous things that these people are involved with. And so I think that what happened is he probably did open up to Meghan. Unfortunately, she's a lot more, rather than being a revolutionary for the people, as is somebody like Monkey D. Dragon, she's a lot more revolutionary for whatever it is that I feel like, I don't like her way of going about things, basically. And I don't think that she really cares so much about what's happening to Harry as much as she cares about being seen to be some kind of whatever she wants to be seen as, right? So that's kind of the thing, right? So having said that, What was I going to say? Yeah, so having said that, I feel like Monkey D. Dragon saw the corruption. He probably met a woman. She wasn't supposed to be with him. She was probably told she's not allowed to be with him. Not because of racism, not because of anything, but because we can't afford to ruin our bloodline because we're going to lose power if we don't keep everything inside the family. If we let anybody else in, then they're going to come in and take some rights. Not to mention the fact that we need to keep our secrets amongst ourselves, because if the world finds out what we know, and we will no longer maintain our power, which is why we have to keep it to ourselves, which is very much what I feel like happens in Europe with amongst the dynasties here. Hence why, you know, they just have this power, but they're not really doing anything. But they're clearly sitting on a lot of information, a lot of history, and a lot of stuff that they are. Because I mean, I learned from you guys, I learned from YouTube that the United Kingdom is censoring the news a lot more than it's being censored in other countries. So even when the stuff with Harry and Meghan were going down, you guys were getting more information about that than we were. Not to mention the fact, I've always found it sketchy that the royal family, Buckingham Palace and whatever, that they host the media, the press, the paparazzi for parties and stuff. Anyway, and so I know they work in cahoots. It's well known that they work with alongside the press. It's well known that the press doesn't post anything about the royal family that hasn't been approved by the royal family, and henceforth suggests that the royal family is the one who's allowing them to post these things. Henceforth suggests that the royal family is even the ones who are giving the information. And again, showing their power in terms of controlling the narrative, which again is something that's happening in One Piece, where when something happens, so a lot of times when the pirates have done something, so like they just killed Dr. Vegapunk, right? Vegapunk is the greatest scientist they've ever had. He's the most intelligent man. He had a snake in his own camp who basically told the government that he'd found out information, again, about this void century. So of course, their plot was to kill him. They sent in their special operatives to go and kill him, right? And then he had when he died, what they did is what they always do is they tell the people through the news outlet whatever they want to do. So they accused the Straw Hat Pirates, Luffy's team, of killing Dr. Vegapunk, even though it was the government who did it. And that's what they do. A lot of times they blame the pirates. So then whenever the Marines come around, or the government, the different islands, they trust the Marines and the government, but then they have an issue with the pirates, right? And they're scared of the pirates by default because they've been told to be. Again, just like how I feel like today, the control of the narrative through the media, through whatever. And so I believe that Monkey D. Dragon, probably his wife was killed, right? Maybe. Which could be a similar story to like a Diana moment. Well, maybe not Diana, but maybe it would have been Meghan Markle had Harry not been in the line for king anyway, which is why I think they just basically said, just sod off and just go away and we'll just let you guys live. But now there's all this stuff to do with Kate Middleton, because Kate all of a sudden is kind of MIA, according to us over here. So I think Luffy's mum they're trying to hide what her status actually was. I reckon Monkey D. Dragon doesn't want to tell Luffy because he doesn't want to put Luffy in danger for finding out who his mum is. I reckon Garp also knows exactly what's going down, hence why he's not attacking his son nor his grandson. He doesn't really attack them. And he kind of does half, I don't know, not really though. Because usually when he sees Luffy, he just comes and says hello and just like calm down. And please turn to be a Marine. And then, hold on. Okay, sorry, I'm having to move around because of the lighting thing. But I like to use natural lighting because it's better. But anyway, so yeah, so in the end, Monkey D. Dragon, yeah. So in the end, I think that's what happened. I think that they don't want Luffy, the government doesn't want Luffy, who's also found the fruit, connected to the sun god, connected to Nika, connected to Joy Boy, who's connected to Nika the sun god, who's considered to be the first pirate, which to me suggests that Nika was the first person to go against the world government, i.e. knowing what they had done, i.e. potentially the ones actually entitled to said power, which would obviously throw off their game, which would obviously stop them from being able to do what they're doing, which is obviously why they're so worried about these pirates rising up and finding the One Piece, because then they'll realize whatever the lies are that the government has been telling everybody to maintain their power, because it's well known around the world at this point, you're either a slave to the government, you're in all the islands are either somewhat slaved to the government or people working with the government, whether it's pirates or otherwise, or you're protected because you have a high level pirate that's put their Jolly Roger on your island, has come in to defend you, which means that if anybody attacks you, that person is directly attacking that pirate attached, which protects those islands. So it still is, and this is what somebody said eerily in one of the videos. I think it was Dr. Vegapunk's actual speech, because the Dr. Vegapunk, who was a scientist working for the government, and they only killed him when he found out too much, right? But he'd been working for the government this whole time and doing all of their things that they were asking for him to do. One of the last things, I think it was he said, or somebody said, and it was very eerie, that the craziest thing about the war that was from 800 years ago is that it never came to an end. And that's actually, I'm going to talk about that in a separate video, because that's actually what I came to the conclusion of as well, based on my experiences living in this country and just looking at a lot of stuff happening in the world, that the slavery never ended, and this war and whatever was happening from then, this cataclysm, it never came to an end. It never came to an end. We're just about to get to another stage of what I believe is going to be another great cleansing, because that's what I think these people are going to do in the actual word of today. So buckle up and stay tuned for that, because I'm going to continue to talk about that in a separate video. So yeah, keep watching through the series. I will try my best to remember to link it in the description box below. The One Piece Noah's Ark thing, because I'm about to link that all together as well, because the great cleansing, the water, how the flood came. It's really interesting how they use the powers in One Piece to talk about how they can make a flood happen. The fact that the devil fruit users, anybody who has a devil fruit, which is all the powers that people have that they weren't born with, or whatever. What do we know about the devil fruits? The ocean, you will automatically drown if you have a devil fruit user if you go in the ocean, because the water is against you, is your enemy for having taken a devil fruit. Which again is interesting. The Imu, who's sitting on the throne, no one's supposed to be sitting on, name in Japanese literally backwards means ocean. And the great cleansing took place because of a flood that came up 200 feet. And Enies Lobby, where all these royals and all these powerful people seem to exist far above the waterline, in out of harm's way, and are trying to hide some history of this time when this water rose 200 meters that people don't know about in this void century. It's all very interesting. So please stay tuned if you want to hear a little bit more about that in my next video. Because if life's a game, it's pay to win. God bless you all. God loves you. I love you. And I'll see you in my next one.